Overall, what did y'all think of Phase 4?
I think it showed some vulnerabilities for the first time in a long time. But the question is, was it because of circumstances or was it because of creative? But it definitely wasn't my favorite phase. But I mean it had its moments. Like technically,
You know, it didn't really bother me as much as I've read other people spitting venom at it, because I just, to me, it felt disjointed and unorganized, but it felt like the fallout of Endgame.
yeah,
And it felt like, everything was shattered, main characters, were eliminated, everything's in transition, everything's out of focus. And I didn't mind, the kind of jumping around and the kind of disjointedness as much as some people, but I think they've got to come back into focus in Phase 5. I mean, you've to me, like, if that was the intent, then you've shown your chaos. Now you've got to bring everything back. I don't think you can carry that excuse into Phase 5.
no.
Yeah.
And listen to this rundown. So like if even that we're questioning how if we like this or not, and not like just already gushing over it, you're gonna be floored if you like thinking about go talk to 2019 version of yourself. I'm gonna tell you these titles and tell me that you wouldn't mark out. So for the films in Phase 4, you had Black Widow, first film, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Eternals, Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Thor Love and Thunder, Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Just that film slate alone, if you would have said that these are the films that are coming out, how can you believe that we're even having the conversation that it was okay?
I don't know. When you read it aloud, it sounds kind of weak to me.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, you got the main.
Okay, do you have the films in Phase 3?
Let me do the TV series part of Phase 4 too, because I think that's affecting the films too, because this is the first phase that had the TV series that were kind of, so we got a lot more content. So we had WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, What If, Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, I Am Groot, She-Hulk, Werewolf by Night, and the yet to come, the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which is going to be the appendix for our Phase 4. Like, you don't feel like knowing now what we know, of course we're not going to feel it, but back then, how do you not put that on paper and like, okay, this is an all-star lineup. This is an unbeatable fantasy football team.
I mean, I would say the TV shows definitely sound stronger than the films, but I think that we found that, at least for me, my opinion of the Phase 4 was that TV kind of muddied the waters, and in a way kind of devalued the movies, especially when you're coming in to Phase 4 with some, I don't want to say B characters, but they're smaller characters. Shang-Chi is a smaller character.
Yeah.
Right? Eternals is a smaller title. I just think that these are lesser known, and you're coming in with these lesser known titles to the films, and then also you're muddying the waters with all these other shows. So you've got basically because like, who was it? Vision and Captain America and all your top tier guys now have gone to TV.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird thing. I feel like Marvin Schwartz from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood would not like this. Oh, it's an old studio trick. I mean, come on, man, right? Doesn't it seem like that?
You get beat up. Boom,
those were like two factors that were working against it.
And wait, remind me, we got to do a spot about booking him as a wrestler, because it's the same idea. But no, you're absolutely, I think you're right. Because Mario, I pulled up the films. It's half of the slate I just read. So Phase 3 was Captain America Civil War. Probably argue one of the best Marvel films of all time. The intro to Doctor Strange. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, coming off how much people were psyched for Guardians. Spider-Man Homecoming, getting their main character back in the fold. Thor Ragnarok, when you have Taika Waititi, and this one was riding the ship. The Black Panther, like we just talked about. Infinity War. And then Ant-Man and the Wasp. Captain Marvel. Then we had Endgame, and then you had so Spider-Man: Far From Home was part of 3, Phase 3.
This is the last one in Phase 3.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't that sound a little bit stronger than a show about Vision in a sitcom?
Yeah, so now it makes me just wonder, just like if it was like pound for pound, if it was those film slate versus those film slates. I feel like Phase 4 definitely underperformed because I can't believe I wanted more from Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness. Like I didn't get enough. Like there was some in there, but there should have felt like it could have been more. And same thing with Love and Thunder didn't get over as big as Ragnarok did. And Chris Hemsworth there was a quote recently saying that, I think Mario, you told me, right? He'll never work with a mad genius ever again.
I did see that one, yeah.
Do you think he was referring to that? So it underwhelmed a little bit, and it surprised me reading through all these titles that it did. And I don't know if it's just saturation or we're still hung over from the magic of Endgame. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's not as good, right? Thor: Love and Thunder is not as good as Thor: Ragnarok.
No,
we can say this. So we don't have to.
Yeah,
so we don't have to be neutral on that, do we?
No, they're not paying us.
It's not as good, right?
No.
So I mean, that's probably why it didn't do as well. It's just,
but shouldn't have been. I mean, you got freaking Jane Foster turning like shouldn't have been.
Well, I think James Hemsworth calls it out perfectly. If he says he doesn't want to work with a mad genius, in between Thor 1 and 2, Taika Waititi won an Oscar. So we went from part 1 to part 2 to being an Oscar-winning screenwriter.
Yeah.
So it's just like, how many Oscars do you have? Chris Hemsworth. Oh, do you have an Oscar, Natalie Portman? She does, though. I think
she does. Oh,
does she have an Oscar? Oh, she's a Black Swan. She won.
Black Swan, yeah. But that to me is just like, he was out of his mind at that point when he's like asking Natalie Portman, do you see Anthony? Thanks for tuning in, man. Asking Natalie Portman, hey, I'm making a Star Wars film. Wouldn't it be cool to be in a Star Wars film? Would you like to be in a Star Wars film? You're talking to freaking Queen Amidala. Like, what? Like, how did that even become a conversation? So right there, I would say, yeah, he's definitely mad.
So it's a thing, it just wasn't as good, and I think a lot of that is due to factors. And again, I think can't even say pandemic, but whatever.
Pandy.
The thing that happened threw a lot of movies into disarray, but they had to keep chug-a-lugging along, and you've got to keep making movies how you're making movies. And like I said, I pointed out to you, even Black Panther feels like this. All like the Phase 4 movies have a lot of standing around in rooms talking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They had to pad that stuff. They couldn't shoot. Like somebody would normally shoot a movie outside or with big sets and a lot of people. They had to keep it trim. And I think that's another reason that we subconsciously we just noticed the films are just a little blander.
Yeah.
So let me read these. So now we can timestamp this, mark it in time, and visit. So when Phase 5 ends, we can review and see if you get excited, because of what I was trying to do with 4. Do these titles excite you? So you had Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I think that one's unfair to say because the trailer was incredible. So yeah, you're excited. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, The Marvels, Captain America: New World Order, Thunderbolts, and Blade. And then for the TV series, you have Secret Invasion, Echo, as part of the, I guess that's going to be the intro, getting Daredevil in there. She was in Hawkeye. Loki, Season 2, Ironheart, Agatha, Coven of Chaos, and Daredevil, Born Again. So that's the Phase 5 slate. Does that get you psyched more than, does that feel stronger or weaker than what 4 sounded like on paper?
What's the final movie there?
Blade.
Sounds weaker, don't you think?
I think it sounds weaker.
Like,
well, because you got
Phase 4 had 3 big finishers. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, because they're putting a lot on Captain America: New World Order, and they're doing some new intros in there. They're gonna have to intro some characters. That's gonna. I feel like on paper, I mean, the Daredevil Born Again series, that's gonna break Disney. I think that's going to get a lot of people. I think a lot of people are excited about Agatha. Obviously, they're going to be way excited about Loki season 2 because that's setting stuff up. I think everybody's probably unsure what to get. They're going to get from Secret Invasion, so you don't know what you're going to get. I don't think people are going to be as psyched for the Marvels, even though it looks good. But I think she still has a little bit of that movie might have a little bit of residual heat because they're making it clear that they're not calling this Captain Marvel 2. It's just called The Marvels, which has comic book precedent, but to me, I thought that was an interesting marketing choice. And then the Thunderbolts is going to be their Suicide Squad, so that's going to be another wait and see. So basically, you have Ant-Man being the biggest name in there, and the Guardians, and everyone knows that's probably going to be the last Guardians. So I don't know. What do you think, Wayne?
It sounds weaker to me.
Yeah, I'm pretty meh on it. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
I'm sorry, Marvel. You don't automatically get my money anymore. I'm not saying like no. Here's the thing. It's like it sounds weaker, but it doesn't have to be. If they have good everything, good storylines, and they don't like seriously learn from Black Panther. They got to get this out of there. They can't put these bloated, unnecessary storylines in there. Let your characters get over on TV. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Write good episodes. There's no reason you have to do that. Let the movies be pure. Let the shows be pure. And it doesn't have to be weak. Like they could write good stuff. I mean, in Phase 1, I never thought Thor would be a good movie.
The first Thor really barely was.
It's like you're not gonna top Vincent D'Onofrio in Adventures in Babysitting. You're not gonna top that Thor.
Now go.
Yeah. So it's like, but it worked.
Yeah.
I
think it was just a great character, but these were major characters. Like
I didn't think Captain America was going to work. I was like, how are you going to do Captain America? Everybody hates America right now, by the way. So it's like, who's going to go see that?
Yeah, that was actually part of their marketing strategy, right? When they called everybody was worried about the name, and then they went with clear, like reminding people, like, remember, this is the first Avenger. But again, these are major. I don't know, Wayne. You correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, Iron Man was more of a B character than Captain America and Thor. He wasn't any big three in the comic books.
No, and not in sales. Not when they were, first coming out. I mean, Iron Man really got a big boost being in the Avengers.
Yeah.
So, but no, Iron Man was considered a B character, like top of the B characters.
Right.
For, a long, most of the 80s, 70s, and 80s. So,
am I wrong to think that he was like, even, I thought it was a glaring not having Ant-Man in like the original part of the Avengers. Like I felt like he was on that par, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I was just, So yeah, I don't know. I guess
What's
I'm not.
The question?
I don't know. We were just talking about does Phase 5 look weaker than Phase 4? And
I think it definitely does.
Say yes, and
I think it definitely does.
And you made a good point.
I tell you what, the same thing Mario said jumped out when you finished on Blade. I was like, that's the main event. That's the final.
Yeah, a Blade.
That's not a strong.
It's gonna be tough. I mean, well, it won't be tough. Marvel Disney's doing fine, but they've got an uphill battle, and they're coming off of a weak finish. So, and Black Panther was great, but it's still somehow it was a little underwhelming in the end.
I think you're really on.
What's that?
I think you're on something there, Mario. It was bloated.
Yeah,
it could a little bit leaner. Trim it up a little bit, and it would have had more effect.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you talked about like Marvel no longer automatically gets my money, and then I'm reading the 4 films that they announced for Phase 6 is Deadpool 3 with Wolverine, Fantastic Four, Avengers Kang Dynasty, and Avengers Secret Wars, and I'm like, well, damn it, they're going to automatically get my money.
That's Phase 6.
That's 6.
Yeah, that's like 2 phases away. Come on.